In this lesson, we're going to be looking at power. Power is our ability to impact the world around us, to manifest and to get what we want. We tend to have this love-hate relationship with power. On one hand, it feels good, it gives us what we want, it helps us to get things done, we can influence, we get to be the conductor, and we can help people, or at least that's the idea of it. If we have enough influence, enough power, we can make big changes in the world. However, on the other side, especially for conscious people, I find there's also a lot of fear around power. The idea that absolute power corrupts absolutely, that it's the root of all evil, that you're afraid of doing harm, you're afraid of losing control. And there's a whole aspect of, well, if I have power, then I'll be responsible, I'll have to make decisions for others. And there's also often a fear of making mistakes. The more power we have, the more in that idea that we can actually have a big impact, we also then start to worry about, but what if I make a mistake? And I want to look at the aspect of absolute power corrupting absolutely, and it's that the root of all evil, but it actually is true, and here's why. Power is a combination of expression and growth. So when it's absolute, when there is zero connection and purpose and we just have expression and growth, then other people become the means to the end. The greater good of purpose doesn't exist, and it becomes something instead to manipulate to get what we want. We manipulate the system so that we can get what we want. And really, it's this single-minded focus. When you don't have any connection and purpose, there's this single-minded focus on, I want what I want, and whatever it takes, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make it happen. And that, in essence, is what it means to be a psychopath. There's no sense of other or feeling other people's feelings or in any negative impact on others. Instead, it's all about what we want. And that's my feeling on the definition of evil. When you are just singly minded on, I want what I want, and there are no others, there is no greater good, there is no sense of purpose and belonging to something greater. That is how I see evil. However, there's the other side of it too, that connection and purpose, when they're dominant without expression and growth, you tend to have less chi and less life force because growth is all about life force. There's also a sense of beingness, but no movement. It's also really hard to feel desire. When life force moves through our unique point of consciousness, growth and expression, life force being growth and our unique point of consciousness being expression, when we have that movement, we feel desire. We feel that impulse. And without that, then it can just feel like there's no life force, there's no energy, and there's just no desire to move at all. And you can really have a problem feeling what it is that you want and being able to feel motivated. Also, without expression and growth, there tends to be a focus on sacrifice and sacrifice being necessary. I have to give up myself in order to affect change. It can also lead to problems with there not being a leader that emerges, because if everybody is just in the collective, in connection and purpose, there's none of that sense of, well, who's going to step up and be the leader in a situation. And also, the greater good becomes more important than the individual. And this also causes all sorts of backlash. We're seeing it right now in the world. The individual rights, I want what I want, don't tell me what to do, versus the greater good. In the example of the coronavirus that's happening, this is being seen really starkly between those that are like, hey, we all need to be thinking of the collective, let's stay inside, let's all work together. And on the other side saying, hey, don't tell me what to do. I want my individual rights. I need to get my needs met and I want to be able to do what I want to do and take care of my family. There's validity to both of these, but the back and forth and the problem of expression and growth without the idea of connection and purpose and vice versa causes all of these problems. The idea of ending the battle between good and evil is really about embracing our power while also having connection and purpose at the same time. And the truth is, for a lot of conscious people, that exploration of good and evil, black and white and gray, and all of that has just been done. It's already been there, done that. And now's the time about how can I be fully in alignment, fully owning my power, fully in my sense of self, and also serving the greater good, serving life and being in deep connection. So let's look a little bit in more detail around the aspects of power. Power is perspectives. Where are you looking from? So let's look at this. I see this as there are three different perspectives. So perspective, remember, is where I'm looking from. Where are you looking from? When you're feeling powerless, you often have a lens on that says, I am less than. I'm at the mercy of the external world. I can get what I want if only the other person did X or Y. There's a feeling of kind of poor me. There's a feeling of conformity. I have to conform and fit in, otherwise I won't get what I want, or I'll be in danger. The idea of rule following, I'm at the mercy of the rules. There also tends to be something that I call spiritual submission. And this is the idea too that the external is spirit or God. And in that case, it's sort of the situation where you're constantly listening. Well, what is my guide? What did my guide say? And what does God say? And what is life telling me? Well, that's an incredibly valuable skill. There also, though, is the need to drop deeper into more of a collaboration. When we're at the mercy of spirit, when we're at the mercy of life, we again lose our sense of desire, and it impacts our ability to manifest. And it also puts us in this constant sort of submissive state where I'm waiting for life to show me or waiting to be told what to do. On the other hand, we tend to then flip. And instead of saying, I'm at the mercy of my environment, we switch into, I'm greater than. I will make the external what I want it to be. I will make it happen, whatever it takes. This is often shows up as bullying, as manipulation, as control. I'm going to take control of the situation, which is a purpose word, but it's got a power over aspect to it, which is that feeling of how I need it to be is how it needs to be. How I see it is how it should be. And with this one, there's another version too of spiritual superiority. This feeling that, well, I've got divine inspiration. God has shown me, spirit has shown me, and I'm going to make it happen. And the heck with everybody else's view of that. So ultimately, this powerlessness becomes power over, and at the heart of power over is still the feeling of powerlessness. There's still the feeling that I have to do something because I don't have the power otherwise. Instead, what we really want to be focusing on is something called aligned power. Now, this is the foundation of the stance. This is where we say, I'm powerful and so are you. This allows us to be in the stance of what wants to happen. How can we be influential and collaborative, of sort of the win-win, and even going beyond win-win to that sort of new emergence that wants to happen. It allows us to be in creative problem solving, improvisation, and to be in collaboration with spirit rather than either powerless to it or power over in spiritual superiority. Now we're able to say, oh, I'm getting insights from spirit. I'm feeling that alignment, and I get to add my desire and move from desire in collaboration with life and with spirit. Power feels good. And there's just a truth to that. Power, desire, sexual energy, money are all about this ability to channel and feel life force. And this brings us to the second half of power. Power as life force is all about how big is your battery, how much current and how much life force can you hold. And of course, we're going to be going into this more in the module on growth and life force. But in wanting to really see the relationship between power, expression, and growth and life force, when our perspective is in aligned power, if we're just sitting on the couch and we don't have any energy and we can't do anything with it, well, we're just going to sit on the couch, right? There's not much movement there without this life force. So when we bring in life force with the perspective of aligned power, then there's action, there's movement, and we're able to do more in the world. And this idea too is that there's a capacity issue with life force. We want to be able to have an expansion of how much that we can manage and how much we can hold and wield in our the ways that we do power. With aligned power, we can have great capacity, and we have the ability to have a bigger impact. And here's the other piece too, is that life force feels good, and we often think of it as we want to just be on the positive side of it, but there's also needs to be the acknowledgement that when we have a battle or a conflict or an argument, it can be incredibly pleasurable. It's because of this charge. It's because we are having this impact. And what's really interesting is I find that it's also about this feeling of being met. When two people who are in charge, meaning charged up with life, come together and meet, there's that feeling of like, yes, I can feel myself in being met through someone else also pushing up against. So often we try to define ourselves with using power as a way to say, meet me, come together, and I can feel myself by you pushing up against me. And it can bring forward more of us in doing that. The downside is obviously that arguments and conflict and battle, if we're constantly needing that to feel alive, if we're constantly needing that to feel ourselves, well, then that becomes a problem. And when we walk around with our sword out, when we're looking, have the stance of power over, then we end up attracting that kind of energy, attracting others who then want to fight us. And it also can then ultimately deplete us and become exhausting. What we want instead is this matter of fact feeling of power. I always think of this scene when I'm thinking about this matter of fact power. It's a famous theme from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the soldier, the fighter comes out with the sword, and then Harrison Ford just takes out his gun and shoots him, right? Like, it's like, oh, I don't even have to fight. And yet, the scene is somebody shooting somebody else. That's not ideal. But there is this way where we get all whipped up and we have our armor on and we have our sword out. And there's just a more matter of fact. When we're fully in our power, we get to choose how we act, and it doesn't have to be this battle all the time. Ideally, don't be shooting people. So we also, when we are in aligned power, we become tuning forks. We are feeling we're feeling our core. We're deeply in a sense of that perspective of I'm powerful, you're powerful, and it wakes up other people around us. We become impactful just by that vibration. Turn up the volume with life force, and that signal gets even stronger. And finally, there's a truth around power that it requires mastery. When you're a high-powered race car, when who you are by default, and a lot of conscious leaders, the people that are attracted to this work, you are this high-powered race car, often in a world that feels like, that's been made for go-karts. So the truth is, though, in order to drive a high-powered race car, you need to have mastery. The subtlest of movements has big impact when you have that kind of a vehicle that you're maneuvering. So it's important to remember that it's not about shutting down your power. Instead, it's about how to learn that mastery and the subtleties of being able to manage and adjust and refine and be able to know how to use this high-powered vehicle that is you.